Welcome to the Showboys podcast. This is the House of the Dragon Companion series, and we are here to break down episode 7 titled Driftmark. And we get a lot of Driftmark. Actually, 100% of this episode is in Driftmark.
I'm always excited to come here and learn the episode name because I watch it for whatever reason. They don't put it up there.
That's the whole reason we do
nights
this, is so you can learn
just so I can hear it.
Yeah, this one was called Driftmark.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Welcome, Chad. Glad you can make it.
I'm here. I really need to get a green bandana and a green guinea tea to match my little character down there.
I darkened the red and the green a little bit more because this is how it is in the episodes. Like even Rhaenyra here has a very deep, almost maroon, purple, pinkish red going on. And obviously the high towers are nearly black. It's so green. It's very dark colors.
Yeah, it's interesting
that's because we're in a funeral the whole most of this episode. Yeah. Maybe that's why they brought out the very dark colors for the funeral.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know in the books the sides are called the blacks and the greens.
Yes,
but it really should be reds and the greens, right? Doesn't that make it maybe a little bit more sense?
Yeah, they said that in this episode actually.
Rhaenyra did say greens. Towards the end of the episode there.
She said greens, or maybe it was the post-credit discussion of the episode. Someone called out blacks and the greens, and I was like, "Is that just the combination of both the colors of the high towers, or
I had always heard
or the red or the green or the black?" Sorry,
I had read that it was because of dresses that they wore to some tournament. I believe Rhaenyra had a black dress and Alicent had a green dress. I don't know if that tournament has happened and we just didn't see it, or if it's coming. I can't imagine we're maybe getting a tournament.
All black armor.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So it might be that tournament. I'm not sure, to be honest, because I think Rhaenyra has a red dress on in that. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm misremembering that, or maybe whoever was saying it misspoke about it, or what.
No, they definitely reference them as the blacks and the greens. So I'm glad that reinforces my hearing of that. I thought they were just talking about the high towers, maybe, but that's useful to know that they were talking about the Targaryens and the high towers.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe it's the blacks because that's kind of what everything is after it's been breathed by fire.
Right.
Fire just turns charred and black, and that's kind of like their thing.
Yeah.
But this episode was really, really good.
Yeah.
Really good. For even on the rewatch and even on the first watch, I was like, kind of not a lot happened, but everything that happened was just so layered and complicated, deep. And I was giving my wife the spark notes on it right as it was starting. So basically, as they were doing the recap, I was kind of going with her just to fill her in because I think she fell asleep on the last episode, and it's a lot to kind of keep up with too.
Right, for sure. We're moving fast. We're jumping timelines quite a bit here. I think we're going to probably get another jump here coming up. So yeah, it's tough to keep it wrestled in, you know.
Yeah, and even as I was explaining, because we had just watched the latest episode of Rings of Power, and then we just double backed and watched House of the Dragon at 9. And just when I was describing everything to her, it's just so much more drama-y because I was using terms like baby daddy and baby, just all the different things. And it kind of made me think, I'm like, man, it just sounds so dramatic when you just give the spark notes to it, everything that's happening. And then it kind of reminds me that this is kind of what it is, right? This is what Game of Thrones kind of is like high fantasy, that good TV drama. And this episode very much plays out like kind of like a mob show or movie would, where like it's just so thick with just looks,
Oh yeah,
one-liners, deep references, and just like tension in the room. So it really felt like they were at like a mob boss's funeral, and everyone was like pining for like what the play is.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could definitely cut the tension in this episode in multiple different scenes, and I think that's what makes this episode so strong. Is this is not a action-packed episode per se. There's a couple of action sequences, but it you're right. It's the drama in this episode, the building of everything, the festering of all these old wounds that are coming back to the surface. And it's exciting to see. Now, granted, I'm getting more and more, and maybe this is the case, but I don't think we're going to see any war this season. I don't think I don't. What I was going to say earlier is this king just keeps on living, bro. Like we have guessed this king's death wrong multiple times throughout this companion series.
Psych, he actually makes it this season too.
Yeah, I mean, it would not surprise me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and given his demeanor and temperament toward everything in his kingship, really I could see the war starting and him still being alive, because they're
Yeah,
like, listen, dude, like we gotta hash this out. Like we get it, you're sad, but we don't care. Screw you.
right.
Like no, no, like that's really a little bit kind of that highlighted really heavily in this episode. Like people are starting to not listen to him. And also his mind is wearing to the point where he referenced when he was going to bed, he called Allison Emma.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like he just straight up called his wife the wrong name. Like he
Right.
referenced her as the old wife. So he is definitely withered quite heavily. And my wife was like, "Why don't they just cut his hair? It's so bad looking." Just
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
stringy, like old man balding hair, but it's still like down to his chest.
Yeah, I think Kirsten said that why'd they make him look like a Lord of the Rings character with his
Yeah.
hair like that last episode? So yeah, I think that yeah, he's just not like I get why he's still alive, but this dude needs to die. And the more I think about it, the more I think that it's going to be a episode 10 thing, maybe.
Right.
Like I don't think he's dying anytime soon. They're not even hinting at it. Now, at the beginning of this episode when they're having the funeral where they're shoving the coffin, I assumed throughout the trailers and throughout watching that scene that was going to be the king until I got to the point where they said who it was, and then they showed the casket was obviously a female casket. So, yeah, he's just holding on with the frayed string, very frayed string.
Yeah, and that would make sense for kind of hook, line, and sinkering everyone in like the finale for season 2. Not that they like need to do that, but Game of Thrones always has something that it's looking toward, and
Right.
this could be the Viserys season, and really just as it all crumbles around him.
Yeah.
And then we kind of end on his death, and it's just like popping off.
Yeah, I do kind of think that's where we're heading, honestly. I think probably the war is going to start in season 2, which kind of sucks, but I get why they did it that way. Like there's a lot that we have to tell here. And we're even kind of I don't want to say we're getting the spark notes of it, but we're going very quickly through a lot of this stuff, right? Because we only got 10 episodes to work with. But I think once season 2 gets here, it's going to slow down, definitely slow down with the time jumps. Everybody's going to be solidified in their characters. We're going to have all the actors that are going to continue for the rest of the series, probably. Because I know the war is relatively short, like 3 years. So we're not going to be jumping, 10 years here, 5 years here, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy this episode. I really enjoy what we've built up until this point. Just a lot of that palace intrigue that the later seasons are missing is kind of what this season is all about. And I love season 1 of Game of Thrones, and that's basically what that all is. So yeah, I'm like, I don't want to say this because I get really attached to things that I'm currently on, this.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that I'm liking it better than season 1 of Game of Thrones, but I think I might be. If you think back to season 1 of Game of Thrones, I think it's better.
It's pretty well polished.
Yeah.
They are different though in a lot of cases,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think it's so cool that they did, even though they are going fast and it is a lot to keep up with. It's done so much for the story. Because imagine if they started the series now,
Right.
and they started with like the kid fight, right? And it just makes everything, all these little things, which are otherwise pretty little activities that they're showing us in these first like
Right.
7 episodes,
Yeah.
mean so much more, as everything just gets layered on. Because now it just makes so much sense why it was so important to see them younger, and these who are now adults as children, and then now they're children.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we have 3 generations that we are sharply tracking. Maybe 4 if you count like how old some people are. But yeah, it's done really good.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I think the fleshing out of the characters here, it's going to pay off in the long run because we're going to get far more attached doing it this way than we would if we just started, like you said, right here at the break off of the war. Like we have to get attached to these characters, even though this is the world of Game of Thrones. These are all new characters. Families are the same, but new characters that they got to get us, you know, invested in. So
yeah, and it also is something really cool, thematically, when it comes to people's relationships and seeing each other again. And you got to think, in medieval times, um, contrary to later seasons of Game of Thrones, it took a while to get around. And like
right,
once people like took off across the sea and world, like they were gone for a couple, like several years. So
yeah,
it really, I think it really did a lot for Damon and Rhaenyra's characters, because every time they get together, they legitimately haven't seen each other for years,
yeah,
like
right,
4 years. Now there's been like a wild 10-year jump where he was off in Essos with
yeah.
his new family. And they said in the after show basically how she really kind of has abandonment issues, where she's just kind of been alone up until this point.
Right, and she has been, really, because everybody I mean, she really had no one legitimately on her side
Half her
throughout the
dad.
thing. Yeah, half her dad at times and the strong guy who they shipped away and murdered. I really enjoy seeing Damon come back. I love Damon, obviously, front runner for my favorite character on the show. We've talked about it a million times. And unfortunately, he's on the other side of where I'm landing on the war specifically. But I will say that Alicent made herself kind of look real shitty in this episode. I'm not gonna lie. I was balancing the beam of falling to the Targaryen side multiple times through this episode, and it makes it harder now that with what happened with Daemon and Rhaenyra in this episode too, because they finally
Yeah.
come together, right? So it's exciting. There's just a lot. Even though there wasn't a lot of action in this episode, there's so much good stuff here. Like we finally balanced out the dragon issue. And
Hmm.
I did want to talk about that
I'm kind of
because go ahead.
concerned,
Go ahead.
because they lost Laenor's dragon. In theory, like Laenor's dragon is unclaimed.
Right. Yeah, I was curious about that too because you have to presume that he's not going to have that dragon with him come
No,
with him, right? Because
impossible.
it's a dead giveaway, right?
Like, oh,
So
you got a dragon. Who might you be?
right, right. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. I don't know that that dragon is quite the player as the one that Alicent's side got in this episode.
Yeah,
I think that
amen.
is like the dragon to have at this time, right? And yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what even happens with the dragon or where it's even at. Do they let these things? Because we have the dragon pit, right, where they're
Hmm,
stored,
yeah.
parked for the night. But are they all like that, or are some of
No,
them roaming free?
no,
Because
because I mean,
Vagar was,
Vhagar was, and we see in this episode, we can presume that the Driftmark dragons kind of, and every other dragon outside of King's Landing, kind of sleeps on the beach or sleeps
right?
outside somewhere.
Yeah,
They don't have dog houses. So, and that's where Aemon finds Vhagar in a giant sand pit that he makes his little nest. And we see 5 dragons overhead during the funeral, right
yeah,
after the funeral proceedings. So there's 5 there, kind of lingering about. So they show 5. We're at there should have been 6 though, because like where is Laenor's dragon? Because we have presumably, unless Rhaenyra didn't bring hers, you have Daemon Rhaenyra, you would have the 2 Hightower boys, you would have Vagar unclaimed, and then Laenor's is presumably somewhere.
Yeah,
So
I
we
mean,
didn't even there are 6 dragons. We only saw 5, and Laenor's is currently unaccounted for, I would assume.
right. Well, I kind of get I mean, it feels to me like he would have left that dragon here for Rhaenyra. I don't know if you
Yeah.
got the vibe from this episode that this whole thing was set up like there was no bad blood between
Oh, yeah.
Rhaenyra. Like she was not legitimately trying to murder him. She was
No,
trying
that was
to
all
make it
good.
seem.
100%.
And so I don't think he's got any bad blood.
Nope.
Like this was his duty. So I would see the dragon maybe staying there for her side. Now that can obviously change.
Well,
We don't know
Daemon's
how.
daughter could claim it.
Right. Yeah, because that's a really good point. She's probably the most logical person to claim it.
Yeah, it's her fault. It all
Right.
happened anyways, kind of. Well,
Yeah.
the main conflict here in the episode.
I mean, I don't blame her, dude. I would not
No,
go
not at all.
anywhere
No,
near
no, no.
that. I would not go anywhere near that dragon, bro, as a little kid. Like I'm good. But I did so last week in last week's episode, I said to put a pin in a specific scene. And it was the scene where Alicent's daughter is playing with the caterpillar.
Yes.
And at the same time, Aemon is complaining about the dragon, not having a dragon. And during that scene, she's off in her own little world, not even paying attention to the conversation, but he's complaining about needing a dragon, and she says he'll have to close an eye. So I wanted to put a pin in that because I was like, I know that Aemon is missing an eye. I don't know when we're going to see it, but I would imagine that's going to be something to do with the dragon. Right. So that's the pin we can pull out from last week's episode. There's another nod to something else in that, but we'll leave that for later. So we can leave like half a pin in there, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. Old Aemon, kind of Lucius Malfoy, channeling his inner inner villain child.
Right.
So, at the top of the episode, we have Laena's funeral, and I didn't quite get, and we see everybody here gathered at the like rocky beach as she gets cast off. Now, I didn't get Daemon's cackle laugh in this scene. Did you pick up on why? What was going on there?
No, it was something that he said about his wife, I think, but no, I didn't.
Yeah,
didn't
he's just talking about like pure of blood and like all this other stuff, and he just kind of like let out a weird, like crazy boy.
Yeah, honestly, it like totally went by the wayside. It was just like that's Daemon, you know what I mean? That's just how he is. He's laughing at a funeral. That's just his character. Maybe there's more to it. I'm sure there is more to it, but I didn't pick up on exactly what it was.
Yeah. So the fact that you didn't pick up on anything there, and neither did I. So if that's just that's Daemon kind of like moment, makes a lot of sense because it fits his character. Because it's like, yeah, he might not legitimately have a reason he's laughing. He's just really laughing at the absurdity of something. Something crosses his mind. He's always thinking. Yeah. And this also plays into like basically where his character is. And kind of where his character has always been, and we've talked about this, how he's a very reactionary character. He's mostly a tool or a weapon to be wielded. Yeah. And that is very much made apparent in this episode as Rhaenyra finally capitalizes on the fact that he is going to be a tool to wield. And he knows it, and he's fine with that because he kind of needs he needs vices. He needs things to kind of fuel him. So him stepping away from all of that to Essos for 10 years, like with a family, like he became a very simple minded person. Not that he was like dumb or anything, but like he just didn't have really any ambition. Right. So now he returns to the fray, and he kind of, I think to his amusement through many of these scenes, is just kind of like the irony of how everything is now playing out for him. And like just all the opportunity, I think it's just his gears are turning. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
I don't have to do anything. This is all just going to kind of unwind itself.
Fall right in his lap. Yeah, I mean, he's had ambitions from the beginning. He's mentioned multiple times that he wants to bring the Targaryen family back to the way they were during Aegon's conquest. And I think that he finally sees the moment. He's off in Essos. He's been shipped away by his brother multiple times.
At least
so.
twice.
I think that he's seeing that his brother is, and he's looking at him in this scene after the funeral where he's
Mhm.
probably like thinking like this dude is like on his last 2
Yeah.
weeks of life. So this is the time definitely to rejoin the fray. It doesn't make sense that he would join Alicent's side.
No.
Him and Rhaenyra have had interactions in the past. We kind of presumed that this was going to happen at some point. They were going to come together. I mean, there's no other way that it would have played out. But yeah, this is his chance to kind of get his plan in motion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he's just so he just moves with the flow at
Yeah.
this point in his life. Before he's a little bit more of an instigator in his younger days, but now he's just really taken on that like, how is this all going to unfold? I also have a role in it because I'm Damon. Um, this is all going to take form and shape by itself. I don't really need to instigate anymore.
Right.
Before he was poking the fire, and now he's just like everything's on fire. I'm just going to get to be myself
Yeah.
finally.
Absolutely.
And yeah, in that conversation with his brother in his dying days basically kind of just wants his brother back. Like he always has this full circle where he's like, I love my brother kind of thing. And he just didn't really have any time for it. Like he didn't feed into it. He just kind of like walked away and made the
Yeah.
king sad. And
Right.
then obviously he got his snarky moment with Otto,
Yeah,
which
I
is
loved
always
it.
great.
Yeah, I loved it. I love their interactions every time. And
He came
yeah,
back
it's
fast. He
yeah,
came back to the to the post really quickly.
really quickly. I'm kind of bummed that we didn't get to see him and the King's first interaction back. It's passed over. The first scene we see Otto here, he's already got the hand pin on. So it would have been nice to see that, but I'm not going to lose sleep over it, but because I'm just so excited to have Otto back, and
Yeah.
and I think he's great in this episode and all the scenes that he's in. I I just love him. He's just got a Tywin vibe to him. That you know what I mean. So Tywin's one of my favorite characters from the original series. We talked about it, so it's cool to see another character taking on that spin, but giving it his own spin as well. And I think he's ready. He's ready to set shit on fire. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, he's definitely returned with a renewed vigor, and he is much more Tywin-esque. He's much more asserted, and if he isn't overtly that way yet, you could really know narratively like that's his direction he's moving. He's already kind of misstepped earlier, and that's how he got kind of tossed out. But now he also, like Damon, has returned to a very on fire situation,
yeah,
right? He's also been away like Damon, and he comes back and he's also a big watcher in this episode. He doesn't take a lot of action. If anything, he plays a very cautionary role in most things. The biggest thing he did in this episode was like kick Aegon for
yeah,
being like wasted on the stairs at the funeral.
yeah. Yeah, I love he's towing a fine line here. He has to be. You have to.
Yep.
I mean, the king. We like to say that the king Viserys is stupid, and he's losing his mind. But I don't think that he is. He's
No.
seeing everything that's going around him. He sees that Alicent is causing, especially in this episode, a lot of issues, and now he's got her father back on his side as his hand. Like it would have been nice to see the exchange of like why he's trusting this dude again all of a sudden. Like it just seems like a piss poor choice on hit. Like get anybody else
Yeah.
but him.
But as always, he just doesn't care, and he's just
Right.
like happy to have you back. Similar with Damon. Like
Yeah.
really, now that I'm talking to it out loud, like Damon and Otto are like this opposing same character
Right.
on the two different sides. Like they
Yeah,
are both
absolutely.
weapons that are being reintroduced and now wielded.
Yeah.
And them not being there for 10 years was a huge vacuum on everyone, where it's just kind of like stalemate. Rhaenyra was very kind of just guarded and just was getting kind of not bullied, but like she was undermined a lot.
Oh
And
yeah.
but on the other side, Allison, more aggressively was kind of exerting her queenly powers over Rhaenyra and just making a fool of that whole situation. Um, but she never, she didn't have her dad's backing because the king doesn't have her back as much as
Right.
she would want.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we like to compare Alicent to Cersei, right? At least I do in my mind. But the more you think about it, she's really nothing like
No.
Cersei. Alicent is very by the rules, right? I've done everything
Yes.
by the rules. I've gotten to this position, doing what I was told to do. So that's a stark contrast to Cersei, who did not do that.
Yeah,
And
and I was gonna toss it out because it's kind of like a throwaway moment later on in the episode. But when Varys offers his services again, she's just like looks at him like, "Dude, chill out. Like, stop with the psycho talk. Like, you
yeah,
just offered to like at least cut a kid's eye out. Like, at the
right.
least,
Yeah.
let alone murder somebody. So
Yeah.
chill,
Yeah.
chill, my dude."
Now, that being said, that's how she is now. Do I think that she could spiral into a Cersei-esque character more close to Cersei? Yes, absolutely. I think she will have the drive and the ambition to do so in order to I mean, she's protecting her children. That's what
Yeah,
this entire thing is about. So, that's in comparison to Cersei as well. She was always trying to protect her children.
yeah.
But
But her default reaction when she does something or something happens is the kind of like not the woes me reaction, but she definitely falls to the side of like that wasn't me, that wasn't proper, blah blah blah. Um, and but for Cersei to get to that point, you have to really like break her down
right.
emotionally and
Yeah.
like strategically to get her to that point. Whereas Allison defaults to that
Yeah.
immediately. Now I think it's gonna be a little reverse to where you break Allison down when you break her down. Like in this episode, that's where you see like the I don't even know if like um Cersei would have like yanked the knife on someone
Yeah.
like that's
No.
ballsy.
Right, that's very, very ballsy. That's what I do like Allison. I think she made some bad decisions in this episode, but at the same time, she's protecting her children. She's
Yeah,
hearing one side of the story at the end there, and it's a lie, obviously, that she's being told. So, yeah, couldn't be more happy with this actress change. Like, I was worried
oh
about it.
yeah,
We talked about it. I was worried for both of them. I think they're both amazing so far.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. So I do want to get to that point really quickly, and so not too much craziness like happens like the build up to that. So really, we get another Corlys and Rhaenys kind of dialogue. I don't
Great.
know.
Yep.
I kind of felt this was repeated and not necessary, but Corlys is still very much like pushing the agenda of their family just rising all the way to the top. And Rhaenys is kind of, but she's taking the mother approach, and she's like, I just want to protect my children. I just want them
Right.
all to be alive. And nothing we're doing right now is really kind of
It's not
aiming our
helping.
children down past the success. In
Right.
your mind, it's success. In my mind, it's not because we're 1 for 2 right now. Like
Yeah.
we lost one, we have
Yeah.
2 total.
And it's I enjoy seeing that, like, practically everybody sees that Rhaenyra's children are not her
Mm,
not
can't say that.
right? So I do like seeing that she's even talking about it,
Yeah.
but I really like his, history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names.
Yep. And
I
that's
love
why they
that.
had this scene. Like
Yeah.
they had to get that one liner in there,
Right.
and really kind of cap that in there.
Yeah.
And it's important to have some moments with those 2 characters just because they don't have too much of them, and it is their home, and it's
Right.
their like it's a really big focus on their children, and we get a lot of exposition and advancement of their children, either from
Yeah.
them dying and then fake dying, and then also the future of we get to see Corlys with his grandchildren, and which is important because he's pouring all of his ambition
Trying
into
to.
them or
Yeah.
trying to,
Yeah.
right?
And I really did enjoy that scene because the kid's like, "I don't want it because that means everybody's dead."
Dead.
If I'm and that's cool to see because you gotta assume that even back in our world at this time, people did that, and the kids are like, "That if I get that seat, that means, like, my whole family is dead," right? So,
Yeah,
it's
really
cool to
morbid
see.
thing to think
Yeah.
about.
Right. But, I mean, it's understandable. It's a fearful thing to think about when you're a child, your parents dying and everybody dying around you,
Yeah,
and
but
but
it's all the adults talk about is like,
right.
"When we're
Yeah,
dead,
right.
it's all on you."
Yeah,
We
right.
don't really talk like that anymore. Like,
No,
we
definitely
definitely
not.
don't. I should
No.
wake up every day and just be like,
Yeah, be like, "Hey,
"Son, when
bro."
I'm gone, It's all on
It's
you,
all
man.
on you,
It's like, what are you
all on your
talking about?
shoulders. Yeah, you're trying to raise a Dahmer there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, I could definitely use more Corliss and his wife because I do feel like they are going to play a very important role in the show moving forward. They have to, especially in the war, because they do have the biggest navy. They're gonna be a very important piece to this puzzle, I think. And we don't get we get some powerful scenes with Corliss. Practically every scene that he's in, besides this one, really has got some sort of punch behind it.
And
But
I mean, and that's also Corliss specifically, Damon as well. And there's a lot of opportunity in this episode to see how Corliss is behaving and his reactions to things that are going on around him, because he kind of does have a strong hand and a very, very important part in what's going on, even though he is kind of like a secondary tier of
yeah,
like voice. But like you see in this episode the way people react to everything and just how like they're dealing with oddities, like, the fact that his son is not like the father of his
right,
grandchildren,
yeah,
like
right,
just kind of brush that under. And it's seen, that's what's so great about this episode. And honestly, the beginning scene and then the middle scene is just like everyone else's reactions and how everyone's positioning themselves
yeah,
as
yeah,
things happen.
definitely,
um so that was a really good scene. We get more. That's always fun. Those fireside chats in
yeah,
in the throne room.
yeah,
Um, so this they did something that um would have otherwise been a problem in Game of Thrones, but they've learned some things. We had a lot of great moonlit night scenes.
yeah,
The moon was very powerful, and I was really really impressed with just how well they captured visually, like moonlight at night, like a full moon. Like it looked like, I don't know, did they actually shoot it at night
yeah,
because
yeah,
under the moonlight? Because it looks so like my eyes were kind of freaking out because I was like, I feel like I'm outside standing in the dark with
yeah.
the moonlight going. You know how it does weird things with your eyes when it's
So I
just
think,
straight
yeah,
moonlight.
I was thinking about this too, and it did, to me at least, look like one of those scenes that they filmed during the day and then they put the like nighttime filter over. You can notice them pretty quickly if you know what to
Yeah,
look for. That's the vibe I got. I think that this was probably shot during the day. But that being said, it was beautiful, and it was definitely much easier to see than previous Game of Thrones stuff that we had issues with. And yeah, the way they use the moon in the show, dude, it's like the cinematography with the moon and the dragon shots has been on point so far in the show. And this is we get a couple good shots in this episode as well. But yeah, I was pretty impressed how they handled the dark episodes for sure. But it did give me that shot in the day, nighttime filter vibe, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, but that's kind of like what moonlight at night looks like too.
Right. It
Like
looks better.
it
Yeah.
looks weird.
Yeah.
It's so like fake looking even in real life. Like you're
Right.
like, why is there so much light out here right now? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
my eyes feel weird.
Right.
But they even the onset of it, because I at first called it Twilight, um, where Damon and Rhaenyra are walking the beach, and then it kind of gets right into like nighttime. And I really like this walk on the beach they have, because it's
Yeah.
like the moment where they, for the first time in, I don't know, 10, 14 years, have been able to have like an actual honest conversation, catch up, be like, you went off and did things. I've been doing things. You left me. Like they're unpacking a lot in very few words.
Right.
Damon doesn't say a lot.
Yeah.
So
True. Yeah. Yeah, definitely a good scene, and I'm excited to see that these 2 moving forward. I think they're gonna be great together, and, yeah, it's just good to see them back together, like, we had to get to this point, and I'm happy that we're here now because this feels right. Okay, yeah,
no,
it's incest, I get it, but this feels right,
the
okay?
internet
Like
defends you though, because I was seeing the articles on the ramp up to this episode, because everyone knew it was coming
yeah,
eventually. And it's kind of the it's like the get together everyone roots for, even though there's that like layer of like,
yeah,
uncle
like, maybe we
niece
shouldn't,
thing
yeah,
going on.
right,
So, but it all has to. It's just well acted. They're good characters. It
yeah,
makes sense thematically in like the Targaryen thing. So even though like present day, they do such a good job like subtracting all the present day like nomenclature around it and telling a story where somehow they get everyone to be like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's go.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I get that vibe. It makes total sense to me. Like I'm totally on board. And that honestly, we went through 8 seasons before of this. Like the incest thing is like so old to me. I don't even care anymore, you know? Like it's probably honestly it was probably a common thing even back in our reality at this time. I think it was. So
Yeah, yeah,
like,
for
just
sure.
get over it. Like, these 2 characters are great. This is what that family is known for, and you've been watching, you're on your 9th season in this world. Like, you should be well adjusted to this stuff at this point.
Yeah, and two things there. I mean, one, if you look at it from like a RPG perspective, like there are clear stat bonuses for
Right.
these two being married.
Yeah.
And then at another angle too, where was I going with that? Lost it. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
I have 2 points there,
Right.
but yeah, so they finally get back together. Well, for the first time because they never were officially together, but
True. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they're basically executing on this unsung bond that they have been deprived of for all this time.
Yeah.
And she kind of like for the first time just like laying out there like, you left me and I've had to like deal with like all this bullshit
Right.
solo. Like
Right.
dad's like half there.
Yeah.
But like you've always been like the rock and like they're bonded in fire.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure she's finally happy to have somebody on her side, you know? She knows Damon is firmly on her side 100%.
Yeah, and also in the conversation with like Laenor later on, their last kind of leveling conversation, and then also in this conversation, she references like, strong. That was nice. Like you could tell she got some reprieve from that. Like it was something
Right.
she actually enjoyed.
Yeah.
But then other than that, like it's been like not for her easy, right? That's Allison's point is like, oh, woe's me,
Right.
Rhaenyra.
Right.
So
I mean, she does have to see if you look at it, Allison does have to see Rhaenyra as the snobby princess that acts
yes,
like everything goes wrong, but doesn't really. And they showed that multiple times throughout the show, just showing the parallels between, Rhaenyra out in the streets having fun and Allison doing whatever she was doing with the king. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So there's got to be some built up tension just from that. Like Rhaenyra kind of acts like everybody hates her, but
Yeah.
she's still pledged to take the throne, right? While
Yeah.
Alicent has everybody around her that seemingly loves her, but I think she hates the situation that she is in currently, right?
Yeah. It's like all
Can
this
you
for kind of nothing.
Yeah, can you see, and I think it's even stupid to probably bring this up, but could you see, I think the king's probably naturally dying, right? Could you see Allison maybe doing something to further No?
No, because Rhaenyra makes point because Damon kind of clearly lays out. He's like, "Come on now, like that's like the High Towers like murdered the Strongs. Like they had something to do with that."
Yeah.
He sees it for what it is, and she was kind of like, "I don't think she would actually murder anybody."
What about
Whether or not that changes or not, I still don't. I still think that's true for her and the king. I don't see her killing the king.
Yeah. What about Damon and Rhaenyra?
What
No,
about him? Like,
we have some hatred between Damon and his brother. Like, let's be honest here.
oh,
There's a lot of tension between them in every scene.
yeah, yeah. I could see Damon killing his brother.
Yeah.
Because Damon definitely would take the stance of like, it's got to be done. Like,
Right. Right.
it's going
Now's
to
the
advance.
time.
It's going
Yeah.
to advance the plot. It's just like good play. Like that's really Damon's thing. He's like, it's a good move. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, bro.
Yeah. It really I
The king
agree
would
with
be
that.
okay with it too. He
Yeah.
would want to die by Damon's hand of anybody's hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is the play for them to do right now before things get too lopsided in this war. I mean, Vhagar is a big win for Alicent's side. Let's be honest. Like, we were talking about the misbalance of the dragons, which I think we even found out wasn't really as misbalanced as we thought it was.
Well, there's Gift and Hightower kids dragons. I didn't really count on that.
Right. And, you know, Vhagar is like the weapon to have right now. So
yeah,
it is smart to take the king out and get Rhaenyra on that throne, because it's far, I would imagine it's far harder to lose a throne when you're sitting on it than it is if you're not sitting on it, right? To lose that ability to walk up to the throne.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like they're leaning towards he's going to die naturally, but that this is Game of Thrones and they could do a bait and switch on us on that for sure.
They might bait and switch us on that because they kind of snuffed out the early death, and then now they're playing into like, hey, he's just gonna linger forever.
Yeah, it seems like that, man, because this dude was dead or close to death before the 10-year time jump, and now we've made it 2 episodes into the 10-year time jump, and he's still hanging on.
Yeah. So then we get, you know, a convenient beach hut, abandoned boat, upside down. I don't know, but it was a place to have sex, and that's where they they did it there, and in the moonlight. That was convenient. You know, they just kind of walked along the beach until they found that. So, you know, where you get Aemon kind of like running over the sand dune, you're like, oh no, is this going to be you know, a season episode 1 Game of Thrones?
Yeah,
where, you know, it's like he stumbles on them, and it's like, no, like for a brief moment, I was like, they could go that way, but I was like, nah, he's going right for that dragon somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely got the vibe that in the beginning, that's where he was headed. He was going to stumble across them, and there was going to be some sort of maiming of him. And I thought that was going to be the eye that I knew that he was going to be missing. But he doesn't. He rolls up bravely to Vhagar. I think he's obviously sick of being teased with the pig from last episode because he doesn't have a dragon.
Yeah, at first it's like, all right, he's just gonna roll up and like get to ride the dragon, but at the same time, like, he's probably ready to die. Like, it's either like I'm gonna get this dragon or die. Like, I'm done with the shit.
Yeah, I mean, he's the younger son. Like, he's not really gonna get much of anything. He needs a dragon, 100%.
Is he younger than his sister?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, because the second kid was the daughter, I believe. So yes.
Okay.
So yeah, he's, you know, this is a power move for him, and he really comes into his character in this because he's been kind of the timid, quiet kid that they were picking on in the one scene or a couple scenes we got last episode with him. So for him to make this power move and roll up to the biggest, oldest dragon and bond with it, I thought it was awesome, to be honest with you.
Oh, it was a great scene. Stunning too, with like the dragon and like up in the air. Like, also gave me like kind of Harry Potter, like flying Nimbus, or that's Dragon Ball Z, but like Harry Potter, Nimbus Cloud. That's funny that Nimbus Cloud and flying Nimbus are both clouds, and they both that's weird they did that. But yeah, it felt like that too, like the first time like Harry Potter rides like the broomstick. And I don't know, they just did a good job capturing, because even like in there, he's like having fun, he's like yelling, he's also terrified, he almost falls off, and I was like watching this and I'm like, oh my god, like if he does fall off, like you're dead.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Yeah.
Like that thing took off and you were like hundreds, thousands of feet up already.
Yeah, he's not swooping down quickly to get you. And that is an interesting thing that I hope they play. First off, the dragon shots here are awesome. The riding of the dragon. Can't wait to see more of this in the coming war.
Net.
He is massive. Yeah, literally a net. Literally a net to get up to.
It's like boot camp. Got to climb over.
Yeah. And the shots are awesome, but I hope they really play into, because he does seem old and slow, even though he's big, old, and slow, Vhagar. So I hope they play into the more nimble, smaller dragons.
Yeah.
Versus the slower, bigger, probably breathes way more fire dragon.
And you got to remember, Caraxes knows his way around Vhagar. Like they were from mates, I guess. Beach mates over in Essos. So yeah, they're definitely, that's a good point in terms of like he's probably slow to turn, He's not as agile, and I feel like Caraxes could like
Oh
just
yeah,
latch onto him and just
for
like do
sure.
some damage. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you aim Vagar in the right direction, he's gonna just absolutely demolish anything in his path. But
It's gonna take him a little while to get to that direction. Get
yeah, like
aiming in that direction.
he could probably melt a quarter of King's Landing in one go, but it's gonna take him like a couple minutes to like turn around
Turn
and do
around,
a
yeah.
second
Yeah,
pass.
yeah.
Not like Danny where she's just like carpet bombing the whole thing
Right.
back and forth. Um, yeah. So yeah, that was a really really good scene, and once again more excellent like
Yeah,
moonlight like
cinematography is
shots
great.
up in the sky with the dragon like,
Yeah.
and they're just done so much better just showing that these things are massive
Right.
dragon.
For sure, yeah.
And then he kind of lands, if not just like crushes the patio
Yeah,
of Driftmark, like not
yeah.
graceful at all. He's definitely the first action stepping into his character there. He's like, you know what? Fuck this place. I'm
Right.
retreating. Just
Yeah, just a
wherever.
grumpy old dragon, man. I love
Um,
it, yep.
so yeah, so this is where he's walking in. He's got that bad boy strut going here. And meanwhile, he was flying, lest I forget. Damon has taken notice from the beach
Yeah.
that someone has taken Vagar. Um, Rhaenyra asks who, and like he doesn't know. Like
Right.
he doesn't have elf eyes or anything. Come
Yeah.
on, Rhaenyra, like doesn't know who took it. It's moonlight and
Right.
far away.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
then also Baylor, Baylor, no, not Baylor. It's a Bay something. I wrote it down.
Who are you talking about?
Oh, Bayla.
Bayla, yeah, yeah.
She is the oldest daughter of Daemon.
Yep.
So she tells
Which
Jace.
I don't know if we talked about this, but if you remember, Baylor, the
Right,
male version of Bayla is Viserys' son that died. And then Daemon turns around and names his daughter
Bayla.
the same thing. Now I get that I believe this Baylor is like a maybe Jesus-esque figure in their religion, so it's not like a uncommon
Yeah,
name by any stretch of the imagination. It just seems like shitty Damon named his daughter after his brother's dead son, you know?
yeah. Heir for
Yeah.
the day. This one's an actual heir for
Right.
much longer.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Okay, go
poor
ahead,
poor
continue.
Baylor.
Yeah.
But so yeah, she wakes Jace telling him that someone stole Vagar. Now, sorry, kids. Like that's not how it works. You can't just steal a dragon. So it's not like a car where like the car like accepts its theft and
Yeah.
it's no longer yours.
Right.
You just don't steal a dragon. Though I can see how they would see it is like theft because it was her sister's to claim. So they
Yeah.
kind of had that plot piece moving in the
And
background.
their mother's dragon.
Their
And we
mother's
talked
dragon.
about I thought that I don't know if we predicted that this would land on Allison's side. I think maybe we said something about it last episode. So we knew that something was going to happen here. Like it wouldn't have made sense for the Targaryens to get this dragon, I think.
I think we called that out before we got the Damon and Essos bit, and we knew that Vagar was out there, and they teased Aemon about not having a dragon. So
Right.
we kind of discussed that early enough to where we didn't overcomplicate it, and we guessed it right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
We
definitely.
we assumed that that's an open one out there, and he
Right.
might get it because they obviously made it very clear that like, hey, he doesn't have a dragon, haha, he's gonna get one.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so simultaneously, while so obviously we have people very aware that Vagar uh, is being written all about. So probably half the castle is aware at this point,
Yeah.
off screen. So the children run down and confront whoever this rider is, and it's Aemon. And Aemon's strutting in, and he kind of is like throwing his cloak, and he's just being like a badass.
Yeah, rightfully so. I mean, rightfully
Rightfully
so.
so. He just got off the biggest dragon in the world.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he also claimed it. It's not like he went on a joyride, like mine,
Yeah, for sure.
mine.
Yep.
And I was gonna try to closely track like the transgressions here, but basically it just like continues to escalate. It's the most violent like child on child
Yeah.
violence I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's a little like jarring to watch because they are just beating each other. Like
Yep.
starts off with some punches, rightfully so, and some like kid like fighting. But then like rocks are pulled and like Aemon's bashing people in the head with a rock.
Yeah.
The girls are getting punched.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get like a dirt thrown in Aemon's face, and Aemon gets his eye slashed open with a very little like dagger, even like looks like a splinter, kind of like
Right.
slices him. So
Yeah.
that was just insanely violent. And oh, that's what I was gonna say earlier. Is from Game of Thrones, what people didn't have issue with was like the sexual violence in Game of Thrones. That's like completely missing from this for good reason, because
Yeah.
like that was the unsettling part of Game of Thrones for a lot of people, was just like
Right.
the outright sexual violence in it. So we've mostly removed that, and we're just kind of focusing on just like the taboos of just like incest and like traditions and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, well,
So
I think it's I think it has to deal with the people that were watching during the show, right? Like,
yeah,
these are royalty, like, that stuff probably wasn't very common
right.
amongst royalty. But, yeah, I think that yeah, this fight scene was I agree, it was jarring to watch, but I did enjoy it, like, I did enjoy watching them fight.
Fight Club
So,
for kids, like
yeah,
literally, it kind of was like Fight Club. Like they were
right,
brutalizing each other.
yeah. Yeah, and, that fir like, Damon's first daughter that he, like, shoves out or punches maybe out of the way, I was like, "Jeez." Like,
Yeah,
man, he's really
clocked her.
riding high after
Yeah,
riding that dragon, so
just decked her.
decked her off the screen, yeah. But, yeah, it was cool to see this, I mean, I knew personally, that's why I didn't call it out last week as a spoiler.
Hmm.
I knew that he was gonna be losing an eye at some point. And, I
Spicy.
kinda presumed in my mind that Dragon was going to do it because
Mm,
of the comment from last episode that he was gonna need to close an eye to get a dragon. But, he did effectively close the eye because of the dragon, right? That's
yeah,
what sparks this entire thing. So, yeah, and this really leans us, into what I think is the best part of the episode, so take it.
this scene is phenomenal,
Yeah.
and um, we're in the throne room. Basically, the king and his court is there. Like all of the King's Landing people are there, because that's obviously who looks like the most damage, because Aemon just lost an eye.
Right.
And the trickle, so the king's obviously storming about. It's very intense, like it's building, right? So then you have the Valerians storming because it's their house, and it's like, what the heck's going on? So that's where you see finally some support for Rhaenyra's children, and then closely in come Rhaenyra and Damon, right? And then Otto does this cool thing where he like notices Damon just kind of like leaning on the door, just like behind Rhaenyra. So those two are always kind of like watching each other.
Yeah. I always enjoy Damon's just he doesn't get involved, he's just watching the chaos, like, he just loves it, and
Yeah,
that's why I love him so much, you know?
yeah. And in the after show bit from the showrunners, the one thing they have Matt Smith say is he's like, yeah, I always kind of picture Damon as a leaner, like he's just
Yeah.
kind of like
Yeah.
leaning around and
Yep.
just kind of observing. Does it
Good
so
way.
well.
Yeah, for
He's
sure.
really owned this character so
Yeah,
much.
I agree.
Um, but yeah, this what I liked about this though is because obviously they do all the like close ups, and it's obviously a ton of like the typical family drama, and it's kind of like anyone's like family reunion or family activity that just went really south, and like
Right.
kids got in a fight, and it's like who did what who, and then all this
Yeah.
the lines are getting drawn really quickly around like which kid hurt who, and who's at fault.
Yeah.
um
It definitely gave me major vibes from season 1 of Game of Thrones
yes,
when Joffrey and Arya get in the fight and they're having the argument about, what wolf should die, yada yada yada. This felt like the higher production value of
yeah,
that scene, you know?
yeah. And what they did though that was really great is they did these like oblique shots of the room where you could clearly see everyone's positioning about the
Right.
room, which is very important in this scene.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
it shifts throughout the scene too. So obviously you have Viserys in the Kingsguard. We have like the main commander, and we have Sir Kristen kind of standing at the head of the room on the stairs. And Alicent is off the one side with her children, the maester, and they're kind of toward the fireplace. And then over to the door, we've got Damon. Otto is kind of like lurking behind the pillar somewhere, like he's just being an observer too. And then kind of more to like the entrance of the room is um, where the Rhaenyra's children are, and the Valerians come down the stairs at. So we're kind of building this divide in the room.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
And it was so well done. Why I appreciate that, because when the tension finally pops off, they show you how like the convergence of everything just like takes form, but then also how like everyone was commanded to like hold their ground, like nobody move.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because like the worst, because if you think about it, like basically much to Sir Christian's like poor point was like we've never had to defend like royal children against royal children.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, you weren't even around though. Like, you guys
Yeah.
weren't even observing the fight. like,
Right.
like, your
Right.
point sucks. You weren't even there. I think
Yeah.
that was the king's point. Like, why was no one even around?
Right, exactly. That was the point, not that you had to be there. You just weren't there, period. Like that's kind of part of your job. And
Yeah, you didn't have to make that decision. You just weren't there to make it. Like,
right.
the
And
point
I
is,
got to be
no one's
honest.
watching the kids.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They're supposed to
Which
be in bed. Like, yeah, we all
yeah,
should be in bed right now. Like, what are you
right.
talking about, man?
Yeah. And I think that I hate this because I really did like Cole. I really like Kristen's character originally, but
He
he's just
sucks.
such a fucking douchebag now, dude. I can't stay. He's just a grumpy ex-boyfriend that got dumped. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they kind of really threw him into the trash heap of characters.
Yeah, they did, and it sucks because he's on my side, right? Like I should like him. Like he's probably one of the best fighters we've got right now. But it's just something about his transformation to especially it was more pronounced in last week's episode with the
It's
teaching the kids how to
it's
fight.
subtle though. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
still
not in that
subtly
scene.
there.
I don't think it was
No,
that
no, in this
in this
episode,
scene. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um,
because
but
he's
yeah,
always
go ahead.
kind of lingering at Allison's side, of course. And then even the commander, like you can tell the commander is like aware of his like potentially misplacement here.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Sir Christian chuckles at the whole idea that um they're called bastards or whatever. But then also, he does make a smart play, and he's like, "Yeah, Allison, I am sworn to you as your protector. You are
Right.
not currently being threatened, so I can't just walk over there and just like
It'd
take the kid's
slice a
eye."
kid's eye. Yeah, right. I mean, I get Allison's anger in
Yeah,
this moment 100%. If honestly, as a parent, if my kid came home with a missing eye, I'm hunting that kid down that did it and he's gonna be missing eye. That's just how
oh
I am.
dang,
So I really enjoy that. I think she maybe went about it, especially in the final when she pulls that dagger out. I think that was probably the wrong thing to do at the complete wrong moment as well in front of everybody like that. I think that that's going to cement certain people on Rhaenyra's side permanently, seeing her kind of fly off her rocker in front of everybody.
yeah, and but that kind of plays to the whole temperament of the room because kind of with these very kind of like worst case scenarios here where one we have royal children on royal children violence. How do you resolve this in the first place? It's never good.
Right.
Two, you have queen on future queen violence. Like, talk about taboos. Like, these are things that should never happen. Like, these
Yeah.
are very awkward moments for royal families and stuff. So even the idea that not much is happening because Aemon lost an eye. Not much is happening. That's very weird to begin with. Not much is happening really about the kids being called bastards.
Right.
And Aegon just kind of is like, come on, everyone. Like, we all
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And like,
Look at them.
everyone's just kind of like awkwardly like, he's
Yeah.
technically right, but the king says it's a lie.
Right. Right.
So it's just kind of like the really everyone's at the end of the line here in terms of like, um, the proper options to take in these matters. It's like, oh, clearly there's always a clear path here, and like the path is not working,
Right.
King. And this is the Hightower's point is like he's let all this happen for better or worse, and like people don't really have many options here in terms of like we're just all just going to pretend like we don't know the truth. But at the same time, like Rhaenyra is right. Like you can't just really call that stuff out if it's
Yeah.
not royally decreed so. So
Right.
it's just a conversion of just a lot of messy, inoperable elements.
Yeah, definitely. And it definitely boils over in the scene. And this was a great scene to have that stuff boil over, I think, with everybody there. You know,
There's
it's
even
it
people that aren't like family members. Like it's
right.
just like the court, like everyone's just kind of hanging out.
Yeah. And it's, Viserys is still on his "we're a family" thing. Like, bro, I get that it's probably late at night. You got woke up out of bed to come deal with this, but come on, bro. Like, you got to see the shit that's going on here. Like,
He started
you
off
can't push it.
strong.
Yeah, right.
He started off strong, but then he wanes when he's like pressed back too much. So like he was like, answer me, boy. And then there's that weird moment where it was like Aemon was gonna like rat on his mom, and like he
Yeah.
saw it,
Yeah. I
like
think
he
he
was like
saw it.
looking to her. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
he
he had
knows.
to. He had to have known. Yeah.
But then
And
he got his out because then he blamed
right.
it on his brother. So then
Yep.
he confronts like the kind of shithead teenager, and then he just says, of course, anything a shithead teenager would say.
Right.
And then he's just like, I'm so done with this. Like he just gets to the end of like his lies and string, and he just like pulls the king card, and he's like, I said so.
Right. Yeah. Like, can we go back to bed? Like,
Yeah.
this is over with. No other kids are gonna lose an eye
He's
because
forgetting why they're all there at this point. He's like, what's happening?
right. Yeah.
And in this moment where Alicent calls him out and is like, that's just not sufficient. This is what Otto was talking about later here about like, I didn't think you had it in you, and it was like
Yeah.
non existent, but like you just straight up stood up to the king as the queen, which is a very important thing to do, but also, like you said, a little out of place and not the time. Maybe to stand up to him and like try to ask for like proper resolution. But then she
Right.
kind of like throws that on the bus. She's like, I want an eye for an eye. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, come on, Allison. Like,
Right.
obviously, he's not going to agree to that.
Yeah, but I think that this is a very important scene for Alicent and Otto because it's been a very long time. The last
Yeah.
time that Otto saw Alicent was when she was young Alicent, right? The quiet,
Presumably. I like
yeah,
to think
you
they've seen
presume,
each other.
yeah, but I mean in a vulnerable spot, I guess
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
the best way to
Right.
put it. So
She was
it's a
putting, she had to make a decision. And he's just like, what's she going to do?
right. And this Alicent is a stark contrast to the one that he probably remembers, the timid, quiet, does everything her dad says. Like, she's not
Hands in her
like that
lap,
anymore.
picking her nails.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I do really appreciate that they show that she's not doing that. Like, she had since we got the actress change, I haven't seen that at all. Like, she has
Doesn't need to.
firmly,
She's the
yeah,
queen.
she's comfortable. She's comfortable. And
And that's the thing, is she's had this upper hand for the past 10 years too, and
yeah,
she's been kind of tossed off her pedestal a little bit as Rhaenyra just gets to kind of waltz in and be like,
right.
waving the privilege around because she's just, Rhaenyra even takes on that proper form too early on when she realized like, okay, this is chaos and a mess. So she kind of like, she stands straight and like faces the king. She's like the first person to do that as
Yeah.
he's like saying, everyone shut up.
Right.
And
Right.
then at the end there, she's like, thank you, father. So like, she's playing her, her princess
The
role.
role. Oh yeah, for sure.
And things are owed to her. And that is what just triggers Allison to no end.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I get why she gets triggered by it. It's got to be
Yeah.
annoying to be the queen and know that your former best friend, who you apparently hate now, is going to eventually overthrow your position and become the queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I get it. I just, like I said, the dagger was one line like that had me teetering on Rhaenyra's side. Like, I was even like when she grabs it and they're having the little discussion, and Rhaenyra says, "Now they see you as you are." I'm like,
Yep.
"Fuck, we do now see it." Like I do. I see how you are.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Like you've been hanging out with Varys too much.
right?
Sorry, Laris.
Yeah.
Laris. And the only thing they were missing in the scene was Laris like creeping like through the blinds. Like he's like, oh yeah, kill her.
Right. Right. Yeah.
He's definitely like a little. He's even at the like the post funeral like get together. He's like just staring. And Christian Cole like points out he's just been staring at you. Like he's kind of taking on this like psychopath.
Yeah. definitely.
He's like that's not like a Littlefinger thing though. Like he's slightly losing his like cool because he's staring at her all creepily from the corner. Then he just offers to like, I'll just kill anybody for you. Like,
Right.
what's up?
Yeah, and Littlefinger was like, we like to compare him to Littlefinger, and I think there are a lot of comparisons to be made there. But he is far more blunt than I ever remember Littlefinger being. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean? Littlefinger would beat around the bush of violence. Like he would obviously do it, right? Or make somebody do it. But this guy's just like straight to the point. Like, yeah, we're just gonna kill the Strongs. Like that's what I'm not even gonna ask you about it. I'm not even gonna
Yeah.
ask your opinion.
Yeah. And I think that intentionally or not, what this show is doing a good job of is showing the contrast of moving from a time where everything is very as it is. Everything's known about everything. There are very little dirty secrets out there. Whereas in Game
Yeah.
of Thrones, much in the future, it is just layered with like one dirty secret after another.
Right.
So the fact that Laris is very kind of just forward with it is because he can be, because that
Yeah.
there isn't many players in that space like
Right.
plotting. So
Yeah.
he's kind of like a very early to the game, like let's just start like knocking people off here and
Right.
let's
Might
just
as
make some
well.
moves here because no
Yeah.
one else is making these moves.
Yeah, and it's gonna help him in the long run for sure. Like the strong thing is a big thing to pull off
Yeah,
without her permission. He had no problem doing it,
yeah,
and I love that. And yeah, I'm excited to see more of him. I'm sure we're gonna see a lot more of him. I think that Allison's going to be playing him a lot more. She's kind of stiff arming him to a point right now
hmm
because even her shock in the last episode finding out what he did, like, you can tell she's not entirely on board with this dude, but
no,
she wants to keep him
yeah,
at arm's length in case she does need him coming,
yeah.
moving into what we're moving towards.
Yeah, and he's kind of got her a little corner too because she's very well aware of
Yeah.
him murdering them. And like just the deeper plot that she didn't really sign up for there. So,
Yeah. And that's
uh,
like that's a nice thing to have in your back pocket in case he ever wants to flip sides. Like that would flip Rhaenyra's
and
top,
that's a Littlefinger
you know?
move too.
Yeah, definitely.
So the other cool thing, another Christian Cole thing. So obviously when Alicent is threatened, he gets to move in for like what the kill.
Yeah.
Sir Christian, like, were you gonna
Right.
kill? Like, what were you gonna do? Like, use
Right.
your technical, like, I was protecting her.
Yeah.
But I like how this all unfolds because Damon moves in, just stops Christian Cole
Yep.
for the Kingsguard to restrain him and hold him in place. So Damon moves his is like a giant chessboard right here where everything just moves.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
two queens on the chessboard just like went at each other's throat, and all the other people, like all the pawns, were told to stop. The
Right.
knights like made their strategic moves. You see kind of like Corliss and everyone like they grabbed the children, like everything just it was just a great scene and how they just
Absolutely.
handled like the moving of the pieces here,
Yeah.
and it just translates so well to like the game of chess that
Very good. Yeah. Very,
how
very good.
complex this all is.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but honestly, one of the best scenes that we've seen so far, to be honest.
Yeah,
Great.
it's tastefully done because obviously you can't just have like a slaughter fest. Like
Right.
all these people aren't just gonna start killing each other. Like that's
Yeah.
just silly. Even though it's
Right.
Game of Thrones, it's just
Yeah.
silly.
Right.
Um, so yeah, the final kind of draw there was, Rhaenyra gets cut. Um, though I do like the Macers note when they're getting patched up, and Laner's like, how bad is he? He's like, well, the cut will heal, but the broken nose is probably the worst thing here.
Right. Yeah.
And that kid got he got a rough broken
Yeah.
nose. Poor
They're all
guy.
banged up looking when he walks into that room. I loved
Man,
it.
quite a
Yep.
funeral.
Yeah.
Oh
Funerals and weddings here. Although we did have a relatively peaceful wedding in this episode, which was nice to see.
yeah. Can't wait to talk about that because that's just cool.
Yeah.
So Damon Aemon ends it very well though.
Absolutely. One of the best lines in the scene.
Yeah. And he just kind of rolls in on his new like high horse, high dragon. He's like, it's fair trade. He's like,
Yeah.
I got a dragon.
Yeah, lost an eye, got a dragon.
Lost an eye, got a dragon. This is obviously something I don't even know if anyone knew that quite yet. Was that the first time that you felt
Yeah.
that was even made known?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, probably people were maybe leaning that way
Yeah, yeah.
because of what happened with Vhagar earlier. But yeah, yeah, dude, the dude just grows into his character here and gets a big set of balls and says, "You know what? Let's just stop all this crap. Well worth the trade for my left eye. I'll take Vhagar all day." Like
Yeah.
that's and even Otto says it later on in the episode of how much of a power move this really is.
Yeah, and the other thing that kind of takes hold of this scene is, the parents obviously are stepping into a complicated situation they don't know much about, which is
Right.
usually how it goes.
Yep.
And they turn the attention away from the matter at hand. Like it
Yeah.
becomes more of the parents fighting.
Right.
And everyone does forget, like, oh wait, why were the kids even fighting in the first place? Oh,
Yeah.
Aemon has Vhagar. And that was the note at the end that probably brought everyone back to the point, like, hey everyone, it's cool. I got Vhagar. Let's just
Right.
like be done with this. It's silly.
Yeah. Right.
I have a dragon. Like, let's focus on that coolness.
Yeah.
One, because that's badass, and I'm like 12. Two, meta for Grandpa Otto. Like, dude, I got
Right.
us a dragon,
Yeah.
dude. Like,
Yeah. The
Grandpa,
biggest.
what do I get for Christmas now?
Right.
I got our team a dragon.
Yep.
And I don't even know if he's like, the kids aren't quite aware of that dynamic yet. Like, they don't know a war is coming. Um, so I don't feel like he got the dragon because he's like, oh, I need to amp up the team. He's just more like, I just need a dragon because I'm
Yeah.
a kid.
Yeah. I think that's entirely what it is. I mean, you gotta assume. I mean, these kids have been born into a peacetime, right? So they're not thinking about war. They think they're
Right.
just squabbling in the family. It's not going to burst into a full blown war. So yeah, I think he's just innocently sick of being teased with pigs and not
Yeah.
having a dragon.
He wants to roll up to the next tourney on a dragon
Yeah.
and just be cool and like park it and just
Right.
kind of be like, yep, I got a dragon. He's
Yeah.
not thinking like, oh, I'm going to be like a key like piece in the war to come.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
dad. Meanwhile, Otto is just like, yes,
Right.
yes. He's like, score one for the high towers.
Absolutely.
And it's tricky because the the Hightower children look like Targaryens, and the Targaryen children look like Hightowers.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Typical Game of Thrones, right?
Yep. So yeah, we have a couple quick scenes. So Otto and Alicent, they kind of reset their stage together in terms of like, I'm back. I'm proud of you. Let's make this stuff happen. So they're kind of like, he's reamping her up because she's kind of like, she's done that thing that she normally does, is default to like, I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Becomes timid Alicent for a little bit. She's kind of ashamed of herself.
Yeah.
Because it's out of character.
Yeah, it is out of character, but I really, really like this scene. I love Otto's dialogue here. Just saying like,
So
we
straight
will
edge.
just give us give us time, and I promise you we will prevail in the end. And that's such a Tywin thing to say.
Chad's
You know
like
what I
tying
mean?
his green bandana.
Yeah, I'm like on board. Like, yeah, your daughter was kind of a shitbag in that scene prior, but now that you're here and we're calming down a little bit, still on that balance beam for the high towers.
Yeah, and I like new Otto. I like V2 Otto here.
Yeah.
And even in the scene where like she's got the dagger at Rhaenyra's face, he's like, drop the dagger,
Right.
Alicent. So like he's even coaching like the sensible thing to do, even though he's totally okay with like, I like that this went there.
Yeah.
But then he's like, all right.
Well, he knows
Playing the
like,
good guy, like
yeah.
with the king, like drop the dagger, everyone be cool. In the back of his mind, he's like, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that if she were to kill Rhaenyra there, like that's a dagger for the high towers. They're both gonna die probably if that were the case. I don't think it's gonna be like, oh, okay, well, you're still the queen, you're still the hand. Like that's bad shit if she kills the princess, right? Like, doesn't matter what Viserys's mind is at the time. Like that's gonna go sideways really quick because he's already. You have to assume Otto is still walking on thin ice with the king.
Oh yeah.
Like, we didn't see the scene where they come back together to see what their interactions are like. I'm sure we'll get it episodes moving forward. But there's got to be a little bit of thin ice that he's walking on there from prior things that he's done.
Yeah, and that's why he's not overtly taking action in that sequence
Right.
either. Like he steps in finally at the end to be like the good guy, like drop, the reasonable person, like
Yeah.
drop the knife.
Yep.
King says we need to go to bed.
Right.
Next morning, good job, Allison.
Good
I'm so
job.
proud
Yeah.
of you. Glad you didn't actually cut her. That would have been bad. That would have been
Right.
too far. I'm always right. I'm Otto.
Yeah.
So similar on the same tone, Laenor and Rhaenyra get a nice scene.
Yeah.
Where they level. We get a lot of like leveling out here in this episode with everyone kind of either rekindling some relationships or kind of having them depart.
Right.
So Laenor kind of comes back and he's just like, my boy toy is about to go off to the stepstones to war. I'm going to recommit myself to you fully and be like a husband, a father, blah, blah, blah. She's like, you don't really need, she's not all into it. And she has some nice moments there where she's like, you've done your part. Like,
right.
It's good. And really, I think what she wants to say is like, that isn't like, even though you just said, prepare me for my ascension to the throne, you're not the person that's going to help me do that.
You're not. Right. Yeah.
So great. Once again, I like his character in this role. And I like that she doesn't really say that, but we know like that's not where her mind's headed.
Absolutely. Because really the point of him even marrying her is to get the Valerians on their side, right? And they're even though the grandkids are not, Valerians, we know this, but Corlys, as we see in the scene earlier, he doesn't care. It's about names, not about
Laenor
bloods.
doesn't care.
And he's right, and he doesn't care either. So really, he's like the pawn in the puzzle that doesn't need to be there.
Right.
Like, there's no reason for him to be there anymore. She's gotten everything that she could have got out of the relationship, right?
Yep.
And she needs Daemon now. That is the piece that she needs to pull closer to her. So yeah, I really enjoyed that scene. I thought it was great for sure.
Yeah, and in her dialogue later, Daemon, where she just kind of like says, I do love Laenor, and like you can tell she does love Laenor. Like they have a really good relationship,
right?
Very functional one, very just as needed to survive, and they did that.
Yeah.
But I think his coming back to like even denouncing like his gayness, like he was like, I wish the gods wouldn't have made me this way. Like she's even like, dude, that's not even like necessary. Like just chill. Like so his only attempt to like fix it is to just double down on what his duty is, where she's thinking more like, let's just kind of like figure out a way out of this duty, because I need to ascend and move on. So I do like how their relationship plays out as a whole, and this was just a good scene to kind of cap that.
Definitely, I agree.
So the last sequence here is really good because it's got that outro narration thing going where we get a lot of quick stuff layered in there with like a little bit of like talking here combined with like quick visuals of what's happening.
Yeah.
And basically Daemon and Rhaenyra are watching the I'll call them Team Hightower sail away back to King's Landing with their 3 dragons.
Right.
I think both of them realize how much of a sad loss that is, and they need to really kind of up their game.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
So they plot, mostly Rhaenyra plots, the kind of like their newfound position that they can take on. And she's like, Uncle, oddly chosen word. She starts with, Uncle, I need you.
Yeah.
And that they should bind their blood in the ways that Aegon the Conqueror did with his sisters.
Yeah.
And that sets up this wedding sequence, very small ceremony, really, of them just
the kids. Yeah.
Very bloody binding of like just blood. I think they're drinking their blood that bled from their wrists, maybe. I don't know, but it looked very Targaryen. And I also like that it looked old because they're wearing these like old, almost like ceremonial tribal robes. It was
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, definitely really cool. I like seeing they're intermingling their blood. I think that's a really cool thing that they do. Yeah, this whole scene's great, man. And I was like cheering it on, even though, I know this is bad for my personal side that this is happening. It's still, I wanted to see more of these characters. Now we're definitely going to get more of these two together. And I think it's great.
Yeah, and I
It's a
can totally
great
see.
power move by Rhaenyra as well.
Yeah, and I can totally see Aegon the Conqueror being like, you know what, we're gonna have this cool ceremony when
Yeah,
like Targaryens get married to each other,
right.
and we're just gonna just make sure the blood is definitely all the same.
Right.
So they get married, and he's like, Laenor would have to be dead. She's like, I know. And this is where they kind of like switch and bait us, and they're like, they set up this plot where Rogue Damon is meeting with Ser Qual,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Laenor's boy toy
Right.
knight. Meets him down by the docks in his rogue outfit that he likes to wear when he's being sneaky.
Yep.
Damon. He's like, yeah. I'm trying to think of his RPG class. He's definitely like a rogue.
He's a rogue, yeah, for sure.
Rogue, but
Yep.
like can wield a sword.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dual class. Rogue Dragon Knight Rider.
There you go. Got it. Nailed
Who
it.
knows? Yeah, he's a knight when he's a knight when he's mounted, but then when he has no horse or no dragon,
He's rogue.
He's a rogue.
Roguing it up.
So yeah, he pays Sir Qual to presumably murder Laenor in a plot here, which is odd as the viewer because you're like, he wouldn't do that. Like,
Right.
he's in love with him, and then we get this scene of Rogue Damon like assassinating a guard on the way into the main throne room, and then we get Laenor and his lover. What doesn't make sense narratively, like they have this weird spat of like, you always look down upon me, you're out of place, and then they sword fight.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it actually does make sense narratively because they are acting in the scene because there is a guy in the room with them.
No, yeah, witness. That's what I mean.
So yeah, I think that I think it's overacted for sure, right? Like I'm surprised. I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it until after. Like it was a little overacted. If you go back and watch it, you can tell that they're both acting, right? Even though they are acting in the show. I mean, they're acting within the meta, right? So yeah, I thought this was really well done, to be honest with you. Like they tricked me pretty good. Up until that last scene there. I thought for sure that he killed him and he fell into the fire,
like, off camera.
Right.
We just get a burned body.
Yeah.
But then we get a shaved Laenor just kind of making a run down the beach, and off they go, sail away to Essos to just live a new life. And that's where we kind of get the dialogue of like, this is Daemon actually, which I like the trade-off here. So like Rhaenyra has this proposition for how we just have to do this, and he's like, if you want to do this, we got to do it a certain way, and in my experience, this is how we're going to do it. So he kind of lays out this plan, which is really cool, and he's kind of like doing this narration of it, and we kind of see it unfolding in one stance, but then we get the capper where it's like, okay, all that was kind of like faked out. But the cool thing was where she's like, yes, this is a good plan. She's like, and only we would know it, and our enemies wouldn't know like what our limits are in terms of what we're willing to do. So like we're coming off as like really bad people.
Definitely.
And we're not as bad as we actually aren't.
Right.
Which is the weird thing. But there is that bit in there where she's like, I'm not going to be a tyrant, but then Damon's kind of being like, true. Tyrants are 100% tyrant. You're going to rule with fear, or tyrants rule with nothing but fear. You're going to rule with fear, love, and respect. So you're going to be a good queen.
Definitely. Definitely love this. I love that. I'm curious to see if Laenor's going to pop up later down the
I like
road.
to think it
This
does.
seems like maybe season 4, 3, 4. We don't know how many seasons we're gonna get of the show, but later seasons he rolls back in. But yeah, definitely cool. He looks totally different, like he's not gonna be recognized. And we have yet another dragon without a rider that I think you called out. Probably Daemon's daughter is going to swing in. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
He's
Makes
gonna
sense, her uncle's dragon.
if he was like a good dad, he would be like, "Sorry you didn't get Vhagar. You can have Laenor's dragon. He's conveniently dead." So,
Yeah, yeah, he's
um
conveniently dead.
now is the dragon fooled? I don't think the dragon would be fooled, but maybe they are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that works. I don't know how the bonding works. I don't know what distance does to the bonding, if
Yeah,
he's,
right.
like, so far away that, they lose the link, if you will.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So that wraps the episode, and that it was just such a good episode. And there's just
Great.
so many cool elements that they're executing, whether it was the whole beginning scene of like the funeral and all that awkwardness to the at night scenes where we get a
Yeah,
lot of those elements playing out, the dragon. Then obviously the pivotal like who did it, why'd you
right.
do it kind of scene. And then we get these like cap off scenes at the end. And really there's this like kind of like 4 sequences in this whole episode.
Yeah,
But it's like so little kind of really happens, but so much does happen because
right.
everyone is together.
Yeah,
Um, and I wonder, well, like you said about Lenor, like if we're going to see him again, this is like one of the kind of first threads that are like is tossed out there, like, oh, we're never going to see him again, like we're not supposed to. But in Game of Thrones, like those would pop back up later on.
oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So
There's no way that he doesn't at some point. It just depends when, and it depends what side he's going to land on when he gets
there's no
back.
way he doesn't like just side with Rhaenyra. Like,
Yeah, I think 100%. And it really I took this scene initially as they went there to murder him, but the boyfriend was like, "Here, we're gonna pretend that," but it didn't click until later that Daemon killed the dude that they threw in the fire. So they're all in on it, right? Like they
yeah,
all know. Nobody was.
I see.
It
I
was
can think
all
that.
yeah. It was all a group effort here. It wasn't
Right.
just the boyfriend being like, "Let's just run away together." I think they all knew that this is how this is going to pan out.
Because Damon helps him get into the throne room.
Yeah,
And then
kills the
also,
body that they end up burning later. So
and it stacks up with the dialogue with Rhaenyra and Damon about like, Damon even says he's like, they played off like, do him this favor of like freeing him and letting him go. That kind of could sound like death, but Damon was really just saying like, let the dude like get lost, because that is what he told his wife, Lena. It's like, we can just stay here forever,
yeah,
not have anything to do with this crap. So this is the life that Damon was considering having.
right.
And instead he was like, Rhaenyra, like just give that to him and like he will be in your debt. And it's a wonderful life to live. I tried to, but didn't
Yeah,
work out for me.
right.
Here I am.
Yeah, and I like that because it does seem off character for Damon to come up with something like that. It seems like the easier thing is just murder this dude, but
He's a
he
little
doesn't.
softer these
Yeah,
days.
he is. He
Or
is.
he's more thoughtful, really
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Because whereas he was kind of sleazy earlier on, bringing Rhaenyra down into the trenches there.
Yeah.
And maybe he would have just been like, let's just kill him. And this time he's like, you love him, I get it, like that's great, and like let's do him a favor.
Yeah. And that's I mean, that's a better way to do it, really, from a strategic standpoint, because then you'd still have a wild card out there somewhere that's going to be on your side. You know what I mean? If you need them.
They couldn't trust that, Sir Quell or whatever to
Yeah.
like keep that under wraps.
No way. Yeah.
That dude
There
needs
would
to
have
be
been a lot of
happier than just
murdering going
money.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a lot of murder because you would have had to kill that dude too. It's just a spiral effect. But I do like that it's showing that these two sides of this war are very different. Alicent, even though she wasn't really in on it, murdered the Strongs, right? And these guys did not. They shipped this guy away to live in Essos with his boyfriend. So I do enjoy that, and you would think it would be the other way around. You know what I mean? You would think the Targaryens, Daemon and Rhaenyra, would be the ones very apt to murder versus Alicent's side. But
yeah, because it's definitely being set up to where, for appearances, the High Towers are the put together proper ones that would do no wrong, and the Targaryens are the wild ones that would just
right,
do anything. Where it's like behind the scenes, though, they're the opposite, and
yeah,
even their dialogue, Rhaenyra and Daemon, kind of leans into that, where it's like everyone's going to basically think the worst of us
yeah,
for what we're about to do, because it looks pretty bad. Because Laenor just got killed by his lover conveniently, and then we get to be married,
right,
which is super convenient,
yeah,
and looks really, really bad.
yeah,
Um,
right, yeah,
Meanwhile, the High Towers, Aemon lost an eye. Like, that doesn't look good, even though he has a dragon. The story on the street is like, oh, kid cut him and he lost an
yeah,
eye, and
yep,
King didn't do anything about it. Like, this stuff's crazy.
right,
Like the play, like maybe we get another play scene where we get
yeah,
some like
yeah,
meta
yeah,
abstraction of what's going on.
right.
But yeah, great episode. What do you think happens in the next? I almost thought about watching the preview for the next
So
episode, but I was like, no, I won't.
yeah, so I actually did watch the preview for the next episode,
I
which
thought
is the
about it.
first one. It was the first one that I've watched since probably episode 2, maybe. And they don't show a whole hell of a lot of anything in the preview, so that makes me think that shit's gonna pop off pretty big in this episode. They don't want to show any of it. It literally, I don't remember how short the other ones were, but this one is very freaking short, bro. Like
Okay.
it's like a couple seconds, maybe at most. So
So
yeah,
then,
I think they're hiding something in this episode, so we'll see.
well, then that makes sense to why they were so show and tell in the earlier episodes. Because I think they're just trying to just say, hey, FYI, this is what happens. We're just going to show you it for
Yeah,
context reasons. It's not really like it's not like critical to plot, even though we felt that way because we're a little
yeah,
bit more invested. But that
yeah,
makes sense that they're slowly kind of dialing that back as we get in more into the mystery of like a lot of things that we know have happened, like Daemon and Rhaenyra together. Aemon lost his eye, got a dragon.
yeah,
The king is like slowly dying. There is a sharp divide now, so a lot of the
right,
things that are like, ooh, we don't know are going to happen have happened.
right. And I think that a lot of the stuff, like even in the earlier trailers, like there's a lot of stuff that I misread entirely, and one of them was this scene here where the funeral scene at the beginning I thought was going to be for the king this entire
Hmm.
time through all the trailers. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think that I don't wanna predict the king dying again because this dude just won't fucking die. Like, it's like the 4th episode I've said that he's gonna die. So I'm firmly landing on that's gonna be an end of the season thing at this point because like, he's just not moving, man. He's not going down that hill. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we go from here, to be honest. What do you think?
Yeah, he's definitely gonna have to make it to the end, and I even want to say a very apparent infighting is going to pop off while he's still alive.
Yeah,
And he's just
yeah.
going to be beside himself and sad like he
Right.
gets.
Yeah, it's
He's
just the
basically
way his life goes. Yeah,
sad grandpa is basically
right.
the role he's going to
Yeah.
take. Disappointed sad grandpa.
Yep,
Sorry,
yep.
grandpa. So yeah, that's going to be him. And at this point too, we're going to have to see some more kind of like map movement where we're like King's Landing. It's got 3 dragons. They're squared
Right,
up. We have Driftmark and Dragonstone, but also what they have not touched on yet is the whole fact that Damon still murdered his prior wife
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
technically
yeah.
is Lord of the Reach
Right.
or the Vale.
The
The
veil, yeah,
Vale.
yeah.
So they haven't capitalized on that whole thing that they made a point to
Yeah,
show.
they showed, right, yeah,
They
yeah,
showed, they even like introduced his wife. It's even like she got murdered off screen. Like it was a really cool cold open. He murders his wife.
yeah.
So it's like in that whole episode, like claiming
Yeah,
his
they did
inheritance.
mention it, right, they mention it multiple
So they
times.
haven't mentioned it for like 2 or 3 episodes. So that's gonna have to come into play in terms of like when the war starts.
Yeah,
So the stepstones is still kind of lingering out there. Um, that has to be dealt with to some degree. But it sounds like there's already some fighting going on there,
yeah, it
unless
does,
they're
yeah.
referencing like their adventures there from a while ago. Because Damon was like, I heard about your to Sir Qual or whatever that
You're
I've
fighting
heard
in the
of your
Stepstones,
fighting in
yeah.
the Stepstones, but it's like, so there's fighting in the Stepstones that Damon wasn't there for.
Right, right. That's how I took that too. Yeah, I think that we definitely need to, because we now have our players firmly in their positions. We have Daemon, Rhaenyra. Now it's going to start. We need to start getting land, that kind of stuff. So I think we are going to start touching on that stuff.
Not many
I
more
totally
family
forgot.
events I see in the future. Like, not too
Yeah,
many
I don't
more
think so.
family
Yeah, I
gatherings.
wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Yeah,
That seems
like
done.
Viserys, like he needs to get the point at this point. Like everything that he puts together just turns to shit. So as the king trying to keep the peace, let's just not do anything. You know, let's just let's just separate these people and keep them away from each other.
Yep, he needs to stop trying.
Right.
Everyone come back to King's Landing and let's all have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the blacks and the greens, I think, come from their colors of their dresses at some tournament. So maybe we're gonna get another tournament here coming up, because that has not happened yet, to my knowledge. So
yeah. Definitely excited, and we have 3 episodes left.
Yeah, 3. We're getting
8, 9, 10
there. Yep.
So I definitely like that they're making very good use of the actors and characters in this season, and that it's going to comfortably roll into season 2, and makes me feel really good about a season 2 and how they're going to be able to at least play this out for 3 seasons. I'd like to guess.
I agree.
3 to 5, no more than 5.
No more than 5. Yeah, I would think maybe 4 is the balancing point here. But it depends. There's like the Laenor dying in this, or not dying and being shipped away. That's not in the books. He dies in the books, and it's written as a history, so there's a lot of wiggle room there. You know what I mean? It's just written that he died in an accident.
He did die historically. Like, as far as this world is concerned, he's dead.
Yeah, so there's a lot they can, we've talked about it in previous scenes that have been different from the books, where they took something very small in the books and spun it into a bigger storyline. So they could really drag this out. And I think it depends on the popularity of the show, right? And I think, I think it's up there. So,
that's a good point about, and this is how I always feel too about, because it's kind of like, book gatekeepers versus like people who let it flex a little bit, especially when it's written like a history. This is where it's fun, because technically saying even Laena, Daemon's prior wife, dying in childbirth, according to the histories, that's technically not false. Like, she did die in childbirth. Did the histories note that she walked outside of the castle and just asked the dragon to burn her alive? They don't really include that detail, because that's just way too much detail. It's just like, she died during childbirth. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, so I definitely think we could easily get 4 seasons, maybe 5. We'll see. I'm excited. Moving forward. I'm excited with the new actresses as well. I would like to maybe see the younger ones come back for a flashback of some point moving forward, but I don't know if we'll get that. I thought they were great. I think everybody thought they were great. So maybe
the current ones are great too.
I think they are too.
The tough part. That's just like, I have no want to go back to the other ones, because it doesn't make sense in the setting anymore. Because even looking at Rhaenyra right here, like, she's just doing an awesome job being this older, tougher, both of them.
And it's weird for me to say that, because I didn't think it was going to go that way. Like, I didn't think I was going to like these new actresses, because I like the original one so much, but I do. I like them a lot.
Yeah, and the way they jump, the way they're jumping through time, like, it would not look right for Aegon the Second to be the son, like 17-year-old son or whatever, of Alicent, and then Rhaenyra, because like just way too close. So
absolutely,
they had to level them up to be more in the realm of like Daemon. Now, like, that's why it probably does not hurt anyone's eyes to see Rhaenyra and Daemon be together, because they are both old. Like, they're clearly in their 30s, 40s. Like, it makes sense. It looks like 2 people who lost or got divorced from their other spouse, and then boom, they're getting together later in life. With children in tow already.
Definitely. I think for sure it's gonna be far less jarring, because I think we are gonna get another time jump here. I know we are getting another time jump. So Yeah, you have to have those older actresses in there because these kids are gonna propel probably to their 20s here coming up. So, yeah, it
They gotta
would
learn to
make
fight too.
sense. Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Well, I think that's all the thoughts I have on this
That's all I
episode.
got.
And there's just psychopath Laris out there doing
Right.
plotting psychopath
Just
ideas.
gimping around.
Just
thinking
gimping
about who
around,
he
like
can kill.
wiping his nose with his tissue.
Yeah.
That guy's up to something all the time.
Every time, yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all I have. That's all Chad has. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And whenever you're listening to this, we'll be back Monday for episode 8 because it's every week. Can't misstep here because HBO is not going to cancel on us one of these Sundays. I sure hope not.
Right.
That would be devastating.
Yeah.
Tune in this Thursday at 9 p.m. for our kickoff of Spooktober here on Showboys Podcast. We'll be diving into what is it called? Analog horror. Mike, analog horror, because Mike loves that stuff, and our guest is also newly diving into that. So we will touch back on analog horror, both the goodies, the oldies, and then some new stuff that has come out since the last time we covered on that topic. And we will be reviewing Bone Tomahawk as our first horror movie, basically a late period Western that about cannibals and things like that. So it'll be interesting. Well, interesting to see. Did not do well in the box office, so we shall see.
That's what I saw.
Actually,
we should see it pretty good.
Yeah, it looks good. So it might be just one of those things that, like, I could see it not landing well, like at the box office. It's just like an awkward thing. So yeah, tune in Thursday. We'll be going over that, and yeah, subscribe on YouTube. Check us out. We're doing all kinds of stuff these days as we continue to roll. And Chad, you started what? A scary game?
Yeah, I started streaming Ghostwire Tokyo, fitting into my little Japanese thing I got going on here. Horror game with all Japanese stuff. Like it was a no-brainer. And it was on sale and I wanted to play it. So I was like, I need a game to stream during this because I can't just sit there and play the Steam Deck all day. So
just wait till the Aria spinoff comes out and they're in like the Jade Coast and it's all Japanese themed.
Dude, I'll be so excited. Don't even get me started.
And with that, check out this banger outro music made by Dad the Cap, who will be our guest on Thursday. Peace out.
Buddy.